Good morning, guys. Hope you had an awesome weekend. And as we know that the market saw an crazy little rally, Bitcoin made an all-time high just to dump the hell out of everything. So the question that I'm asking myself today, and the premise for today's live stream is on the basis that I'm saying to myself, this is the time to buy the dip. Why is this the time to buy the dip? Well, simple. We're as close to an invalidation as possible. So if I want to be bearish, we're at the level where if we lose, I'm allowed to be bearish. And if I want to be bullish, it's as cheap as possible, so that if I'm wrong, I lose as little as money as possible. Okay, so I'm going to explain this today. I'm going to do an Ethereum analysis, and then we're going to look at some of the alts that I feel has still got a little bit of juice left. So while Bitcoin's going to try and figure out what it wants to do, I think these alts are going to run. So if that tickles your fancy, you want to know a little bit more, you know what to do. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. If you're joining in on Twitter, say hi, drop me a comment of maybe a bag you're holding. I might do a couple of requests at the end of the stream. For those watching in YouTube, good morning as always. Hello, Liam. Hello, Stanku, Zenodiac, Oliver, Ashton, Stanku, and Mr. Altec Codes. These are the OGs, the regulars. These are the ones. Okay, so let's get into this real quick. Let's get serious. So what happened last week while I was away? And I apologize. I wasn't here as much as I would want to have been for reasons out of my control. We had the CPI figures came in right where we wanted it to be. Now, what is the CPI? It's the inflation rate. It's the rate at which goods are going to get charged. And if the CPI remains stable, stuff in the normal US household is going to remain at the same price. Good. This means that Powell needs to reduce the interest rates. And that's really good ultimately. Guys, I've got a delivery at my door as I'm going live. Let me just quickly go sign for it. I apologize. I mean, I'm sitting here now and, okay, give me a sec. Hello? The perks of going live. I do apologize. Okay, yes. So where were we? CPI going up means that prices are going up. If the CPI is remaining low, it means that we can expect the interest rate to get lowered. Interest rate currently sitting between 4.25% and 4.5%. And the expectation was that it was going to be a sure thing. But then we got a spanner in the works, and that was the PPI figures that came in much higher than anticipated. The forecast was 0.2. It came in at 0.9. So what the hell does this mean? Okay, so if we were to paint the picture in our mind that CPI is the figure that says that if I were to buy something, that's the rate at which it's going to get more expensive. The PPI is a leading indicator. It says that the manufacturing of that item, if the manufacturer absorbs the increased cost to make it, it means that the economy is weak and that inflation won't go up, because he will not, in order to ensure that the sale goes through, he will not jack up the price. But if the PPI figures are high, which it is at the moment, it means that the CPI figures coming next will be higher again. Why? Because the manufacturer is comfortable jacking up the price. He's comfortable or sure that there will be a buyer willing to pay more. And that's why it's normally the PPI figures are leading indicator and the CPI figures are a lagging indicator. And tomorrow we're going to get the FOMC minutes, meeting minutes. And there's going to be clues in there whether this is actually going to happen. So we're going to get a little bit more volatility. So to pull this back to where price is at, okay, we've had good CPI figures come in. Therefore, we had this nice pump in Bitcoin. Then we had bad PPI figures coming, saying that there will probably not be an interest rate drop. Therefore, we reversed, because all of this was on the basis that the interest rates were going to drop. Okay. And for the next 24 hours, me and you, we're going to have to sit on our hands and wait for the data to come out, the FOMC meeting minutes, to know what was discussed if this happens, so that the market then can kind of decide what its next move is going to be. Therefore, it's a good time for us to buy the dip, because statistically, everybody is saying the rates are going to get lowered regardless. Okay. And from a risk point of view, we're at the invalidation. So let's do some TA and let me explain. If this is a 5-wave, what I'm pointing at, I'm illustrating that this is a 5-wave impulse. Bitcoin's going to try and go make a higher high. There's a certain rules that needs to adhere to in order for this to qualify as a 5-wave. So you'll have your 1, your 2, your 3, your 4, your 5. And the biggest rule is that 4 is not allowed to go below 1. Okay, guys, now I have to leave again. Just give me a sec. Hello. Sorry, guys. This is now the final, and my wife. Okay. Let's get into this. So there's a certain rule that's not allowed. You're not allowed to go before that. Now, this happens. If it does, it brings the 5 down, and it means that this is a correction. We don't want this to be a correction. We want this to be an impulse. So now is the time to go long. It's the time to buy the dip, because if it falls below this level, we then know that this 5 is not going to be in the sky somewhere. It's going to be much closer to home. Simple as that. That's as simple as it is. Okay. The joys of kids, dogs, life in general. Yes. And this is the thing about doing these things live from your house, you know? It happens. Okay. But thanks nevertheless, guys. Okay. So let's then get back to BTC and then, yeah, take it further. So I am looking at this area where we're at right now, and I'm saying, okay, somewhere in that level, I'm looking for an excuse to be bullish. So I've got an analysis. Yesterday, we shorted around these levels. We went to TP. I did it on the 4-hour and on the 15-minute. We were looking at entries. So we entered between that area. TP1 is hit. And now I'm sitting at a point where I'm trying to look for 115K buy. But the alts that I'm going to be sharing with you guys is on the basis that even if Bitcoin goes and drops this level, goes to 110, these coins still have a lot of strength in them. So the retraces within them won't necessarily invalidate their impulses in the same way. Now, you know that, and I've said this, and I'm going to just repeat this briefly. Complacency, the reason it happens and it works is because something like Bitcoin and Ethereum might lose critical support levels, but then the opposite is happening with an alt like, say, Solana, Bitcoin Cash, or something like that. It's just pushing all-time highs. So the average Joe would say, well, if this is pushing all-time highs, how can the market be bearish? And complacency is basically just the market's firing off its last rounds on each of the coins up until a point where they all have done it, and then there's a massive correction. Okay, and that is what I don't want to see. But the argument is, even if Bitcoin does this, goes to 110, the weekly, we're still bullish, and the alts could be in this complacency. So Bitcoin is just cooling off, and they're going to be firing off just like ETH did in the last one. They're going to have their moment in the sun and to complete their own respective fifth wave and then be done with it. Okay, so makes sense. So although something here might not look good, somewhere else it probably will still be fine, because that's how people get trapped in at the top. Tops look bullish. Bottoms look bearish. If you're bearish and it's a top, it's not a real top, you know, it's simple as that. Okay, so that's the argument. Now, what do we have to substantiate that this is the buy the dip moment right now also? So we know that if we look at Bitcoin and we look at the pricing, just the pricing. So let's make this as transparent as possible so you can see the line. 4 is not allowed to go below 1. Okay, so we're at that level. It can't drop any lower. Any lower, you get the hell out. Okay. Then we also have the argument that from a supply and demand point of view, price is negotiating around this level. And if it wants to go and make a higher high, this line is typically resistance, has typically been resistance, and we broke through it in an extremely strong manner. So it's fair to assume we need to test it before we go on higher. And we cannot afford to wait any longer or go any lower. So it's the cheapest risk you could potentially take to get in. Okay, that's it. Simple as that. And that is why I am optimistic at this stage that this is a buy the dip scenario. What else do we have to substantiate this buy the dip? If I bring up the point and figure chart, this is the CME, the point and figure chart. What happened was, when we were at these lows, I explained to you guys that we have these gaps and price is going to act as a magnet drawing price to that range. Then we pumped. We were sitting right there. I said that there was a gap there. Price is going to move back down. It's a magnet. And then we made a new all-time high. So that's Bitcoin all-time high. It's the most expensive it's ever been. And as we retraced, we now created we actually created 3 gaps. Yesterday we filled the first one. So if we go make a lower low, what my expectation is, a slight lower low for the day. And tomorrow, the FOMC minutes supports the fact that we will probably see the reversal in interest rates, and that the PPI figures, although they came in a little bit higher, is not going to be as important to them as they might be. We will probably see price rally right back into one of these gaps. Now, I use the point and figure chart as a destination roadmap, not a roadmap, a destination map, because we never know which direction it's going to go in first, but we do know that it eventually goes and visits these gaps. So as long as those gaps are there, it will go and visit these gaps. It's very seldom there's one and there's one that it misses it. And if we fail, I will be bullish again at around 110. That's why, if I have to conclude with Bitcoin, the support still lives at 110. I'm not buying on there. I'm not betting that we're going to go there because I want this to be an impulse. But if this then goes there, that will be a buy, but then I will use this as my exit. And this would be, I think it's called a running flat or ending diagonal, something. I think it's an ending diagonal. I'm not the best versed in Elliott wave or the smaller, less regular forming patterns. Okay, there you have it. So now you have the idea of where we are with Bitcoin. So we head over to Ethereum to try and look for this. And this is why I'm bullish, because if you look at Ethereum. So Bitcoin has got room to go down, say Ethereum's got room to go down, say to 3,800. But If I take this entire move for Ethereum and I just apply my simple fib on this, you can see that the 23.6, our continuation fib level, okay, as long as something stays above the 23.6, you expect more, lives at 3,900. So Ethereum bobbing around this range is bullish, is a buy zone, is a continuation zone. Okay, don't believe me? Let's pull this back to, say, 3. Let's take it from 3. Let me just get the bottom. And I'll move the entire thing. There we go. Let's do that. 2 to 3. Your 38.2, your 618 is your buy the dip zone. If you look at the entire move, we try to stay above the 23.6 for more. Okay. If you lose the 23.6, you're going to go buy the dip zones. So as long as we're there, Bitcoin and ETH could still chop and go make a higher high. And that's the argument here. So if we stay above this range, we can chop and go make a higher high. I don't know how high it's going to be. We'll take it as it goes, level by level. But that's it. We also know that when we have divergence like this, so let's go daily time frame, the RSI is making a lower low and price is making a higher high. As long as we stay above that area, that pivot, that support, that tells us we can still remain bullish. It's just a healthy retrace. And that's all that it is at this stage, a healthy retrace. So am I willing to buy ETH where it's at right now? No. I still think it's going to go down lower. I am willing to buy Bitcoin, however, because Bitcoin is at that point where if it does go lower, it's going to go lower to 110 and it's going to change the landscape. So it's as cheap as it could be for us to be bullish. And then on that basis, if we then start looking at coins like Solana, where we're at right now, we're in the same environment there. Price is making a lower low on the RSI than where 0.2 is. So we've got hidden bullish divergence again. And this is the thing. Solana still has one more leg to go. So a quick, fast rally for Solana, taking it to, say, 224, 230, that would be a realistic next target, or potentially even much higher, 260. And all of this could happen while Bitcoin just finds its feet, bounces. Let's say you're bearish, bounces and goes there, then goes back down. Just that little move could see Solana go make that higher high, so that the entire market then starts lining up, so that if it wants to be bearish for longer and go and test the 110, okay, everything is aligned, the alts and Bitcoin, because at this stage they're not aligned. So the market will spend time, it will take its time until the whole alignment happens. And then, yes, if we want to go super cycle, I mean, I'm not blowing smoke up your asses, you know, super cycle stuff, then yes, maybe this is just the beginning of something insane. But I don't want to go there just yet. All I want to do is protect what I've made up until now. And I want to know when to buy the dip and trade for a nice next long. And this is the right area to do just that. Okay. Knowing that we're fighting considerable resistance. So I'm just keeping an eye on that. Okay. So that's the whole story for me for today, guys. I've tried to simplify this as much as I can, as possible. Yeah, that's it. Now, the next part of the question that I wanted to ask myself actually is this then the right time to maybe start thinking about moving my long-term Bitcoin bags to Ethereum? Why would I want to do that? You might ask. Simple. Alt season is on the basis that if you have one Bitcoin and you take that one Bitcoin and buy Ethereum with that one Bitcoin, by the end of that, you'll have 3 Bitcoin. So Bitcoin might go up 10%, but Ethereum will 3x your amount of BTCs. It will go up way more. That's the appeal for alt season. And if we look at the charts to look at how this statistically normally plays out, you can see that when you do have Ethereum outperforming Bitcoin, meaning if I had one Bitcoin and I bought ETH at that day, 50 days later, I would have had so much more Bitcoin, 1,000% more Bitcoin. Okay, that's what I'm looking for when I'm looking at an alt. Not just to make me more dollars. I want to make more dollars and have more BTC so that I can move back to Bitcoin, because the greater trend for Bitcoin is still bullish. Okay, the weekly and all those things are still bullish. The same happened there. So when we look at this, on average, you have between 50 to 100 days where you'll have a move where Ethereum will not just give you more dollars, but it will give you more Bitcoin. And that's the nice thing. So where we're at right now, if we look at ETH to the BTC pairing, in order for us to say, okay, it's now going to be the alt season, we're going to see massive gains, Ethereum to the BTC pairing still needs to break the hidden bearish divergence. We're right at support right now. So I'm going to go to the daily time frame. So there's divergence, lower low in the RSI, lower high in the RSI, higher low, higher high on price. Okay. And we're sitting right at that pivot on the smaller wave. So the argument is Ethereum should at this stage now pick up and get the higher high. Because if we can get the higher high, all the ETH institutional adoption. Remember what happened with Bitcoin when it got a spot ETF and institutional adoption. It went from 30 to 100. Okay, amazing. ETH has not seen that yet. ETH is supposed to be sitting at 10,000, going to 20,000. That kind of argument. If you consider what ETH, how much one ETH to a BTC was in the previous markets, we're not even close to all-time highs. Okay, or relative to that. So if that needs to happen, what needs to happen first? We need to lock in our first higher high and delete hidden bullish divergence. So, my dear friends, am I ready to move my Bitcoin into Ethereum just yet? Hell no, because I first want to see Ethereum build a consistent trend against Bitcoin. Then, when it's done that, I can use these lows. I don't need to buy the highs to make maybe a little bit and just to see it all get taken away 2 weeks from now. I want to buy a good buy zone with this and then see the gains never get challenged again. That's the whole idea of buying a dip in the end of the day. You want to buy a dip that doesn't go and dips lower. You don't want to see price challenge that area again. And now is not the time to do just that. Okay, so we're living in an environment where we want to be making some quick money. So Bitcoin as a trade for our analysis, I'm looking for quick money. I'm not looking to invest here because it's not the right time to do that. Ethereum at this stage, we're looking for a test at highs. Maybe it goes there, maybe it goes there. The argument is Bitcoin probably needs to remain weak a little bit and ETH needs to look stronger so that we can get that higher high. And only thereafter we will then see the longer correction. And that's the time when I'm going to move my money into ETH to try and see if I can get that run, that nice money printer. And while all of this happens, there's still opportunities in the market. Opportunities with Solana, which is giving us hidden bullish divergence. So we've got a clean invalidation. We don't want to see a lower low, okay? And we don't want to see price lose any of these demand zones. And if we zoom in, we're looking for the price to stay above this demand at 175. Okay, simple as that. Support and resistance level. Let's mark it out. Let's just so that you guys know there is support. Buy good support levels. Okay, the same then for Cardano. Shown a lot of strength. There's support, lives at 58. It's bouncing on the axis. I'm waiting for that RSI just to go below 40.2. So any little shakeout or something like that would potentially get us there. So that I can get in on Cardano for a last little wave. We need that wave 5. Okay. The same for AVAX. AVAX has done this. So Cardano is sitting somewhere there. AVAX has now gone lower. You can see the lower low on the RSI. Hidden bullish divergence is there. AVAX is getting ready for that next push to the upside. Okay. Coin like Link is the same as Ethereum. I think we've basically locked in our fifth wave. I explained to everybody, I'm not sure. Maybe it's there. Maybe it's a little bit more. But all I know is that that's the support area 22 for now. And because we've got a new high and a new divergence, we can probably raise that to 24. And if we fall below that area, we're probably going to go back down to at least 20. And that's it. You know, whether there's going to be more 4 or 5, I don't know. At this stage, I think it's done. And it means that coins like Sonic is coming onto my radar because this is bearish as hell. But we're staying above this level at 32 cents. So are we turning this into support? Which means that if we can find good support for Bitcoin and all the other coins, Sonic will probably go try and make its first higher high. And that higher high will take us from close to 30 to 46, will give us a 55%. That's an easy gain. And we'll have a very tight invalidation, because if we lose the support range at 30 cents, we're done for. It will then go and test the axis again and could potentially go make a lower low again. So it's a cheap risk, because you don't have to wait forever to invalidate this. And let me give you an example of that I want to end off with. If we're looking at like pudgy penguins, okay, we're sitting at that support area. We probably can argue that we're about to lose it. So I'm just going to switch to the daily time frame so you can see what I mean. There's your divergence. We're hovering around that range. When is hidden bullish divergence invalidated? All the way down there. And this is the problem. So that's a 50% drawdown on this one. And it's still bullish. So this is a dip that can keep on dipping, and it's still a buy the dip. This is not a really cheap investment to get in on, because you can only walk away when we fall below this level. Where the ones that I've been showing to you now has got a very tight entry. We're close to this. We're sitting right there. So if it falls below, we can walk away with as little loss as possible. Remember, this is not financial advice. At the end of the day, you guys are still going to have to apply your own trading strategies, everything you need to make sure that you've got this narrowed down. What I do have for everybody that wants to support the content, you can open your own Blofin account, okay, using my referral link. It's in the video description. You can head over to the Discord and go click on the navigation button, okay, and then claim your partner role. So if you've now opened your account, you funded it, you've taken your first trade, you can click on this little button there, claim your Blofin role, and then reply with the questions that's in there. It's going to ask you for your user ID so I can verify, and your TradingView username so I can give you tools, as well as it will then unlock the education in the Discord so that you can learn a little bit more about these things, how to use tools and learn to trade. So you can go through all the videos that I've made about power candles, the strategies I use, and so forth and so forth. It's all there. It's all for free. All you need to do is just back the channel that backs you. Okay, simple as that. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate each and every one of you guys joining in. I said I will probably do a request. Can you look at Say? I think that is a real fair question today, Stefan, because Say is quite high on the list. So let's have a look at Say real quick. So I'm going to use Say. It's the Bybit spot. I'm going to start weekly because we just want to see where we are within the macro structure. And what we do have here is retail is going to look at this and say it's trending bearish. So when we're at this range, there will probably be a little bit of a reluctance to buy. So if you've got your Say bags at this stage, there will be hesitance. Doesn't mean that you need to vacate, because Say is trying to hold on to a trend. Now, this is just trend. We're just looking at this from a trend point of view. Remember, every analysis needs three things. First, the trend, then the momentum, and then the structure that needs to be analyzed. Okay? Else you're just guessing. So we know that we're consolidating, because as soon as there's triangles and stuff, price is consolidating. We're not necessarily trending bullish or bearish. We're consolidating. This is trying to consolidate. Break out of this consolidation. Say has two critical resistance levels that it will go and test. One lives there and the other one lives there. And the reason I say that is because when we sold off, we created an imbalance. It moved so fast that there's liquidity waiting to exit there. Not everybody got out. Everybody that has meaningful liquidity. Okay. And this is magnets. So it acts as a magnet. Price is going to migrate towards that area. Okay, there you have it. So now you know that there's potential bullish best case scenario targets for around 50 and probably around 75 cents. Jump through all of this, then say is in price discovery and the sky is the limit. But for now, these are realistic hurdles and realistic take profit points from this area. But if we do not break out of this range and we start trading down here, we need to know where support is. Support then, in the end of the day, is how bad can it retrace until I then need to give up on it. Okay, that's very simple. If we look at this scenario, this was support, and when it's lost, it got bought back right again. So the market at this stage assumes that, say, at around 25 cents is a good deal. It overextended with massive sell-offs like this. It's fair to assume that it will overextend. And when it overextended, it didn't go below the launch lows. Okay? That's good, ultimately. So we've got 25 cents as a real good support level. Now, if we zoom in, we start taking this now. I'm going to skip the daily. I'm just going to go to the 4-hour time frame. What do we want to see in order for this to remain bullish? Okay, simple. If this is the beginnings of a consolidation, saying that this is, we're done, we want to see what? Hidden bullish divergence prior to the consolidation. Price didn't make a lower low, but the RSI did, okay, which we have, check. What else do we want to see in order to say that this is the end of a consolidation and there's going to be more? We want to see that these lows do not go below the previous highs, meaning that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is possible. As soon as we start falling below this, or had fallen below this 5 that was going to potentially take us to 55 becomes less plausible. So that's all good. It listened and it adhered to the impulse. So everything that we're currently seeing here on the daily time frame then suggests that this is, in fact, impulsing to the upside. And that if we can get that breakout, the price will hit that 55. Now, normally, if people would want to have a absolute answer, a black and white answer, it will go there, it won't go there. I don't have that information, and I don't try and perceive that I ever do. So there's certain rules. If this is the top, what would have initiated that top? There would have been bearish divergence, correct? And we normally call it strong bearish divergence, which means if that is the top, what would have happened is price would have made a higher high, but the RSI would have done the opposite, which it did. So it's very simple then. If that is the case, we keep on thinking that there's going to be more unless price does what? Falls below that level and turns that support, that thou shalt not cross, that pivotal area, into resistance, because then we're going to move. So anywhere between where it's at right now and here could potentially be shakeout bargain buys for the attempt to try and go there. That's it. And if it falls below this area, bounces on the support and starts rejecting there, we're going to go there. There you have it. So, Stefan, I hope that sorts you out with say, gives you the invalidation, tells you what you need to look for and wait for. And statistically, the betting man in me suggests and thinks that we'll probably go and make that higher high. But tomorrow, FOMC meeting minutes could potentially decide whether that's truly going to be the case. So there we go. Where's the FOMC meeting minutes? Thursday, I'm at the 14th. Sorry, guys. This thing has... Where's everything gone now? There we go. So tomorrow's FOMC meeting minutes... Why am I not seeing? There we go. There we go. The FOMC meeting minutes will define whether that happens, because the market is always pricing in any buy that is happening now is on the premise that we have a certain expectation. And the market at this stage, the fuel that drives our bull market at this stage is all based on the fact that the rates are going to drop. And we want that to happen because we know that when the rates drop, when the rates pivots, okay, from going up to down, lower rates, the stock market, except in one scenario, keeps on rallying because of that. And we would want to see that. To bet that this is going to be different, an outlier event like this time, I would say is counterintuitive. We almost want to bet that it's going to keep on rallying because reduced interest rates means everybody's got more cash. People are going to want to buy shit. It's as simple as that. Okay. So this is typically how these things work. Okay. That's everything from me, guys. So thanks so much for taking the time. I hope I've given you guys enough information. If so, share the contents. Send the video to a friend. And that's it. See you guys in the Discord as always. If you have any requests, you can head over there. We can always continue the chat. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.